can you trust me? We've had some really big shocks over the past few years with the pandemic and then what happened with energy bills. And when those things happened, I did everything I could to protect you and your families and help get the country through it, whether it was furlough, whether it was the considerable support with energy bills, because that's who I am as a person. I'm in this to help you, help your family, and particularly when our country goes through tough times, I will always be there to support you. Right, who's next? Well, someone, yes, sir.
Hi, Rishi. I've got a two-part question, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so the first question is, what is the current status of the national service conversation, as you brought up earlier regarding national service? And the second part is, when asking young people of their opinion of the government, royal family and current affairs, the general consensus seems to be a negative view. If that is the case, why do you believe there appears to be a lack of expressed patriotism and support for the king and country?
Right. Well, actually, they're linked questions in a way, actually, and a great one. And actually, part of the answer to your second question is why I think national service is the right policy at the right time for our country. And I've been thinking about this for a long time in this job, about how do we restore that sense of patriotism, pride, and cohesiveness in our society? How do we bring ourselves together and support that? And that's one of the reasons I think national service is going to be great. First and foremost, it's going to give young people incredible skills and opportunities. I think that everyone can agree. They'll have a choice of whether they do a really selective military component or a civic role instead. But it is going to foster that culture of service, bring people together from all walks of life, and strengthen, I'd say, the cohesiveness, the unity of our society. And I think that's really important in this day and age, when there are lots of forces that are pulling us apart, trying to divide us. And then the other practical thing it will do is strengthen our country's resilience and our security to deal with the threats and risks that may come along in the future. So for all those reasons, I think it's a transformational policy. It will become a new rite of passage that everyone goes through and bring us closer together. And I think if we get it right, it will help solve the second part of your question, where actually we do have a renewed sense of service, because I think service gives you purpose. Being part of something that's bigger than yourself is something that's really fulfilling. And as young people go through that together, I think they will have a greater sense of pride in what we stand for and what we are as a country. Excellent question. Where was there? Was a hand over here somewhere, I thought. Maybe, no, it's gone back down. Right, yes, sir.
What will be done to ensure that achieving net support will remain a priority for this government and your party? And also, how will you aid households in achieving it in their own net support in their own households?
Do you mean net zero?
Yes, net zero. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Actually, thank you for the question. So look, I have two young girls. They're 11 and 13. Of course, I believe in climate change. I want us to get to net zero, because that's the right thing to do for my kids, your kids, our grandkids, making sure that we leave the environment in a better state than we found it. The question at this election, the choice at this election is, how do we get there? Right? Now, I've been very clear that we need to get there in a different way to what had been proposed previously. And that means we need to be more serious, hard-headed and pragmatic about it, because there are a couple of things that I want to prioritize. I want to prioritize our country's energy security. That we've seen in the last couple of years what's happened, right? When we're held hostage by dictators like Putin, we can't have that happen. So that's why I'm supportive of energy coming out of the North Sea. We're going to need it for decades to come. We're better off getting it here at home. It's good for our economy, good for our jobs, good for our energy security. That's something that the Labour Party opposes. And I also want to prioritise your bills and making sure that we don't unnecessarily burden you with costs. And you said, what help is there? What I don't want to do is force you prematurely to rip out your boiler, upgrade your home, change your car, because those things cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, and we don't need to do them right now. We will do them slowly over time in a measured way, the way other countries are doing them, not race to do it overnight, because that's just going to cost you a fortune, and I want you to have financial security, and I want our country to have energy security. So yes, we're going to get to net zero, but how we're going to get there is going to change if I'm re-elected as Prime Minister, and the choice is very clear, because Keir Starmer and the Labour Party don't believe in British energy from the North Sea, and they don't support my changes to that approach, which is ultimately going to cost all of you thousands of pounds to pay for those changes. Right, next, who have we got? Oh, yes.
Hi. You mentioned earlier that the UK is fourth globally for exports. However, manufacturing has been declining in the country for decades, with many manufacturers moving to overseas countries which are cheaper to manufacture. How will yourself and the party support and hopefully grow manufacturing to enable the economy and get the country back on its feet?
So, I'm going to very politely disagree with you, because there was some very good news that we had last year. Actually, because of businesses like yours that are doing an incredible job, we actually overtook France in the size of our manufacturing sector, right? That's what's going on. Because of businesses like yours that are doing such a great job, we're doing really well, right? And I want to make sure that we continue to do well. So there's a couple of things we are doing, and we were talking about them a little bit before, but it's cutting taxes for businesses like this to support your growth. So we made a decision to cut taxes on investment. Manufacturing businesses need to invest in factories like this, incredible, to expand, to grow. So what we've put in place is a significant tax cut for businesses like yours that are investing back in the economy as you do to support your growth, and that will help us grow the economy and create more jobs. And we're also cutting taxes for businesses like yours that invest in R&D. Now, you've got new hydrogen lifts, incredible. It's going to help us get to net zero. That's great. And that's going to be a new product that you're going to be able to sell around the world. So when businesses are coming up with new things, that's positive. And that's why we want to cut taxes on R&D. So those two tax cuts are targeted particularly at manufacturing businesses like yours, and that will help you and lots of others to continue growing, create jobs that are well paid, because that's how we'll grow the economy and continue to overtake many more countries in the size of our manufacturing sector.
All right, well, there's the Prime Minister and his latest campaign events at the Nifty Lift factory in Buckinghamshire. But our political correspondent Darren McCaffrey is following the Conservatives around today and joins us now live. Darren, great to have you with us in the high-vis as well. And look, it's the third day really of him doing these sort of little chats with the public, but the first time I've seen him get what is quite a pokey question, and that one was about his actions during the COVID lockdown and that fixed penalty notice he got during Partygate.
Yeah, and it is a reminder that even though we've been talking about taxation today and the wider economy, and clearly he was making a speech there, wasn't he, about security and reiterating those same messages we've heard over the last week or so. Conservatives are determined to provide security, that in the end it's up to the British public who can decide who the next Prime Minister is, and they will decide the election on a various different issues, and they've got different concerns about different political parties. And as you say, one member of the public there clearly had concern about the Prime Minister's records around Partygate, that audience member who had lost his mum, he said, during COVID, at the height of COVID, and seemed pretty angry the Prime Minister had received a fixed penalty notice, and the parties that went on inside Downing Street. A reminder that that issue still resonates with members of the public. Now, the Prime Minister did try to address it. He said that it was a clearly must audience member. He tried to explain the fixed penalty notice, that he meant, which he didn't mean to, that he thought he was attending a meeting, but also trying to pivot away, if you like, to his record as Chancellor around the furlough scheme. But as I say, it was a question, an honest question from a member of the public affected by COVID, who clearly wasn't happy about events in Downing Street, and whether, while that is mainly attached to Boris Johnson, it is clearly still an issue for the Conservative Party, and this is a Prime Minister who did receive a fixed penalty notice over that, so it has resonated. Now, there are lots of other questions this afternoon, whether it's about manufacturing, whether it's about that National Service Initiative, but I think for all of us who are following these campaigns around, where we frankly, let's be honest about this, get led slightly by government announcements and opposition announcements on a daily basis, that for lots of other voters out there, there are other issues at play here, whether they be historical or not, that are going to factor in how they vote in 5 weeks' time.
Right, OK. Darren McCaffrey there in Buckinghamshire, thank you for that. Well, now that Parliament has been dissolved and the benches of the Commons are empty, our Home Editor, Jason Farrell's travelling across the country with a parliamentary bench, offering voters the chance to take a seat and tell us about the issues that are important to them.
Westminster is coming to you, washing up on your shores, asking for your vote. It's time for us, Britain, to decide who will occupy the green benches next. And so this piece of Commons furniture is for you to share your thoughts on.
Yes.
what do you want most in the next government?
Integrity, I think is the one-word answer.
It doesn't matter whoever it is, but I really want to see is a left in the seawater.
We have the best healthcare system in the world, but yet it's extraordinarily underfunded. It has to stop. It has to change.
We're in Newquay, so let's hear from a Cornish surf instructor.
So when I hear the politicians talking, you know, it's hard to know who to listen to or what to engage with. I just see what's happening on a daily basis, like from the way I'm living, like the cost of rents like tripled in the last few years, or like the cost of food's gone up, and I see, yeah, them like we're losing a lot of the good things that made this country great.
Young people here are feeling the squeeze, and it's the same for these two.
Hi, I'm Sophia.
My name's Max.
We managed to buy our first home, and we feel quite privileged and quite lucky, but it was hard, especially with the salaries down here. It just doesn't compare to salaries out of London, and house prices are just shooting through the roof.
The money just seems to go every month. Whereas I kind of feel like, in a lot of ways, I was better off 10 years ago.
St Austell and Newquay is Tory-held. Labour needs a 14.5% swing to topple them, and with that they'd be on course for a crushing 50-seat majority.
We've come here because there are seats up for grabs in the West Country. Currently, it is a sea of blue, but Labour and the Lib Dems could turn it into a patchwork of red and yellow.
But are they winning on the issues? With 700 miles of stunning coastline in the southwest, people here care about the environment. They also worry about housing and transport. And like primary school teachers Frankie and Jessica, rising prices.
Bearing in mind we earn a pretty good salary for being in Cornwall, yet going to a shop and doing like a weekly shop is just so expensive.
And then I think at work, budget cuts.
Oh yeah,
so
massively.
A real lack of resources, lack of funding.
Big issues in the election means that no matter whatever party's in, there'll be no change. They will not fulfil their commitments. Somebody else comes in, they change it again.
The game is on. The winner depends on us. But while the people of Newquay know what's wrong with their lives, fewer know which party has the answer and who they want to put on this bench.
What's the dog's name? Barley.
Barley?
It's not even my dog, but...
Come here.
Jason Farrell, Sky News, Newquay.
Well, on the 12th of June, Sky will be hosting an election leaders event in Grimsby, which is a key marginal seat and one of our target towns. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, the Conservative leader, rather, Rishi Sunak, have been invited to attend, and we are looking for a live audience to join us on the night. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now for more information and to apply, with the potential opportunity to be able to put your question to the men who want the keys to number 10. All right, let me bring you some of today's other stories now. And 2 bodies have been found in the search for a man and his son who went missing during a hike in the Highlands. Tom Parry, who's 49, and his son Richie were due to return to their home in Cheshire yesterday after visiting Glen Nevis and Glen Cove. A police spokesperson says the bodies had not yet been formally identified, but the family had been made aware. Delhi's recorded a record temperature of almost 53 degrees Celsius as parts of India swelter under an unrelenting heat wave. Scientists say the heat is down to an unusual transition between El Niño and La Niña, the weather patterns which they are linking to climate change. And in Iceland, a volcano is continuing to erupt, forcing the evacuation of the tourist attraction, the Blue Lagoon, and it's threatening the largely abandoned fishing town of Grindavik. It's the volcano's 5th eruption since December. Now, a court in Hong Kong has found 14 pro-democracy activists guilty of conspiracy to commit subversion in a landmark case. It's thanks to a law imposed by China that's all but wiped out dissent there following widespread anti-government demonstrations in 2019. A number of former lawmakers now face the possibility of being sent to prison for life, with a sentencing expected at a later date. Our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnston reports.
Hong Kong's so-called 47. Pro-democracy leaders accused of subversion by China. 14 now convicted. 31 had pleaded guilty. Almost the entire leadership of the city's anti-government movement is in jail. Today's verdict, another milestone in a clampdown on dissent. One of only 2 to be acquitted had this message.
Dear fellows, I have to say I have to thank all those who have shown their big hearts and concern. But I should not focus at this moment. There are still other defendants in this case, warranting our concern and even love.
In 2020, Beijing imposed a national security law to bring to an end months of protests in Hong Kong. The opposition didn't give up, holding an unofficial primary election, aiming to get its people into the legislature. But Beijing wouldn't have it. Sweeping arrests followed. Activists, politicians, all behind bars. Including the face of the student protests, Joshua Wong. He pleaded guilty. In Hong Kong, some defended today's verdicts.
You can see that we enjoy a certain degrees of a stable. I don't think that the Hong Kong people will be likely living in a society that's full of the protests, standstills, and the sanctions by other countries.
But activists argue Hong Kong's freedom is in serious trouble.
They're basically claiming that every normal practice in democratic parliament are unconstitutional, are subverting the state, and that is just absurd. That is not even close to any international standard, and it really shows that the court is being used as a weapon to target political dissidents and to crash Hong Kong's political diversity.
China's crackdown has crushed the opposition. These verdicts could be the final blow. Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Beijing.
You're watching the Sky News Today. We'll be back after this short break.
Day 27 of walking from Manchester to Ibiza. Day 43, walking from Manchester to Ibiza. Day 44, walking from Manchester to Ibiza. Day 46 of walking from Manchester to Ibiza.
Yeah, that's the end destination at O Beach in Ibiza. I just thought, where can I walk to that's a bit controversial? Where can I walk to that's going to enable me to raise as much money as possible for charity? I thought, Manchester.
And have a bit of fun at the end of it.
Yeah, and it sounds as well. It sounds, people, and the more stupid things sound, I think, the more chance you're going to have to raise as much money as possible.
And you're raising money for the Tony Hudgell charity. Of course, we know Tony's story, the little boy who lost his limbs to horrific abuse at the hands of his parents. He's now with a loving family, and they raise money for so many different children's charities. Talk to me about why you wanted to choose that particular charity.
So I wanted to link something to do with walking. I wanted to raise money for a charity sort of linked to what I was doing. Obviously, I was walking to Ibiza. Tony raised a lot of his money during lockdown when he'd walk laps around his estate. So immediately, we put two together. I thought, what a fantastic charity. And what they do is also amazing. So we got in touch with Tony's parents via Instagram. We set up a WhatsApp group and we went down to Kent to meet them. I'm just going to say, what an absolutely amazing bunch of people. And straight away, I knew, this is the charity. So every day you'll get the map up and you always try and look for little shortcuts. Like you'll think, I can go down that road and ignore the map. And on that instance, I ignored totally all day. And I went, right, I'm going down this big road. And this D road led to a motorway. And there was no way off except 16 miles backwards. So I jumped onto the motorway and I thought, right, I've got to get off the motorway. So I jumped over this bridge, down the bridge.
I should just say, don't try this at home if you're going to do any charity walks. Just got to put a disclaimer there.
Please don't try it. I don't recommend it at all, but great for character building. But no, that is definitely the most dangerous part. And I think walking alone through very isolated areas in the south of France, like you say, when the signal goes, anything can happen.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent.
Maverick here on the red carpet. I'm so excited, Tom Cruise.
Katie Spencer, Sky News in London.
Welcome back. Now, the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, leader of the Alba Party now, has launched that party's regional campaign in Fife. Mr Salmon claims Albert is the real deal when it comes to independence and has described the SNP as all over the place. Albert's expected to put forward 20 candidates across the country, including Aberdeen North and Glasgow South West.
The thing that's distinctive about Alba is we're the ones with the strategy to get to independence. I mean, you know, they said, although it's not quite true, but Einstein's definition of madness was to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's where the SNP are locked at the present moment. They think if they keep asking Westminster leaders to give them a referendum, then somehow they're going to change their mind. They've been doing it for 10 years, and they still want to do it in this election. What we say, what Alba says, what Neil Hanvey says, what I say, is each and every election should be a mandate for Scottish independence. We use the ballot box at elections to take us forward to freedom. And that distinctive message is going to stand us in good stead and gather support as this campaign continues. I'm not saying we're going to sweep the country in 5 weeks' time, but we're going to introduce that message to the people. But that message will sweep the country in 2 years' time at the Scottish elections.
That was Alex Evans speaking earlier. You're watching Sky News Today, and still to come in the next hour of the programme. We'll have more in the news that the primary school teacher Fiona Beale has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years for murdering her partner Nicholas Billingham and burying his body in their back garden.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first.
Good afternoon, it is 4 o'clock. This is Sky News Today, your headlines. A former primary school teacher, Fiona Beale, jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years for murdering her partner, Nicholas Billingham, and burying his body in their back garden.
At least we can sleep safe in the knowledge that Beale will be locked away for many years, during which she will have more than enough time to reflect on her actions.
a 9-year-old girl fighting for her life in hospital after a shooting that injured 3 adults in Hackney. The Princess of Wales not returning to public duties for a military ceremony next month. Labour's deputy leader tells Sky News she doesn't see any reason why Diane Abbott can't stand as their MP. The Conservatives and Labour clash over tax as both parties make similar pledges. And Sir Ed Davey makes a splash again as the Lib Dems unveil plans to better fund mental health care for young people. As Donald Trump awaits the outcome of his hush money trial. Good afternoon. A former primary school teacher, Fiona Beale, has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years for the murder of her partner, Nicholas Billingham. She admitted to stabbing Mr. Billingham to death before burying his body in their back garden in Northampton.
In my judgment, taking an initial start point of 15 years for the minimum term, the aggravating factors I have identified lead to a very significant upward adjustment to, or very close to, a minimum term of 25 years. Making allowance for the mitigating factors I have identified, that brings the minimum term down to 20 years, before then making the adjustment for your plea that I've identified, a minimum term of 20 years duration. I do not wish there to be any misunderstanding as the sentence passed. As with the passing of any life sentence, it is that, a life sentence, in your case, life imprisonment.
Well, Detective Constable Kim McHugh from Northamptonshire Police read this statement on behalf of Nick Billingham's family.
At least we can sleep safe in the knowledge that Beale will be locked away for many years, during which she will have more than enough time to reflect on her actions. She has demonstrated extraordinary evil. Behind her facade as a kindly schoolteacher, she was secretly planning the cold-blooded killing of Nick